the CVR World Cup postseason women's finale. That's right, the women's A group, Dixie Newsome, Anna Barbado, facing off today in the championship of sorts of this postseason league. I am Chris Haskell, joined by Frank Garcia and also Casey Shum, that crazy fast rider that you know so well. Hello, fellas. What do you think is going to happen today?
Fireworks. Fireworks, Chris. That's what's going to happen.
This is pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, it should be. How are you doing today, Casey?
To be here and watch some fun racing, getting ready for next weekend.
We're sitting right here in the pen right now. Go. This is going to be an exciting start. 3.5 minutes to go until we kick this thing off.
Looks like we got a full race pen here too. 55 people sitting here waiting to go on a nice flat course. So some pack racing.
I see Beth is in.
I'm seeing a lot of familiar names in here. A lot of ladies.
Make it interesting.
No kidding.
I guess I should have some background music for us because you guys are like, it's early morning for us. We don't even know what to do. Casey's usually up early in the morning, but me, I'm like, I can't even talk this early.
That's not really early. It's just I'm 2 time zones earlier than you guys, right?
Man, no kidding.
You're later.
Yeah. It's getting close to lunchtime for me.
2.5 minutes to go here. This has got to be a little bit nerve-wracking for these racers. I mean, you line up for regular league stuff, and it tends to go pretty well. You go week after week during the 8-week season, and then you get some matchups. And if you're a strong rider like these women are, you definitely see some talented matchups, but maybe you feel like you've got just a little bit of an edge. But when you come to a race like this, 2 minutes to go here, then you're probably asking yourself, is this my week? Do you have confidence, or do you maybe even just have a little bit of reticence that you're going to be able to pull this thing out? That's got to be, because this is now or never, right? I mean, if you find yourself, kind of trailing at a different time, and eliminated, say, in week 1 of the postseason, there's not as much to worry about. You're like, well, I made it a good effort. But this is, I'll either win or I won't. How would that make you feel?
Yeah, this is definitely a challenge. I think getting started here, up to here, it's always been just trying to get to that next step. But now it's a birth to a live final. The winner of this one goes on.
So we have them right here. Now you'll notice this is a very similar setup to what you've seen in the past. Some of these CVR events. This is maybe just kind of getting you close here. If you're on the Cycle View app, we'd strongly encourage you to jump in and watch your favorite riders. You can see them from the point of view of these individual riders. This, of course, is the CVR Racer cockpit, which will include the data from, of course, the game. And on Saturday and Sunday of this coming week in CVR LA, you'll be able to see the racers side by side with their point of view in the game. All right, as we get ready to go here, lots of folks in this, and you're starting to see the teams come out. I see Dixie Newsome, of course, Team Vixen, but she is not alone. Her teammate Beth York, who'll be there on Saturday and Sunday next week, also in the group. We're going to see in about 24 seconds how many of these teams have come to play and how many are there to support their riders. We've noticed this amazing thing as we've been doing this event here, that the teams have shown up to help their riders. Casey, you've done that yourself. You've helped out some riders in the past. Tell us a little bit about what that changes for you in the race dynamic.
Oh, it changes a lot when you get in these races. When you're not racing for yourself, you're racing for somebody else. It's a different kind of pressure. There's less personal pressure, but then you're trying to do something for somebody. So it's big motivation. I've actually found myself able to go a lot deeper and be a lot more aggressive in a race, kind of push myself a little bit harder just because it's a different motivation.
Not quite hearing our guy Casey, so I'll just call what I see here, ladies and gentlemen. Big start, fast start. If you've got the opportunity to maybe break a few of your opposing teammates or even the rider you're racing off the back, you try to do it. You try to get out, and they are pushing hard. Dixie Newsome right there, making sure that she is going to be where she needs to be. You'll notice Team Vixen wearing that red, white, and black kit. You'll notice Dixie with that buzz cut, that mohawk. This is a mixed race, men and women this morning trying to do this. Carrie Conabear, the really, really savvy rider, she'll be at CVR LA as well, that World Cup major. One off the front, but not of concern for this group, because if you find yourself in the main group with Scotty Weiss, no less, you're going to be in good position to do really good things. Now, I'm not hearing much of the game sound in my ear, but I can tell you it is really exciting. Look at the tail of that Comet. I've been in the tail of that Comet before. No one wants to be there. Sandra Deegan also in this group. Beth Kaiser in this group. So many racers that you know well and you've come to love from watching week after week. This is a nice, fast start. This is Volcano today on Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very, very unique WBR race with so many racers that you know in it. But the two that we are paying close attention to include Dixie Newsome, who is trying to take for herself the women's A category win as she's surrounded by her teammates. Dixie is in a great spot to be able to do this. She's right near the front, but you got to be careful. You do not want to do too much too early. And you can see by her heart rate, 188 beats per minute. She is hanging on for dear life. Maybe get your nose off the front, Dixie, and see if you can find the wheel of a teammate. They'll keep you in it. You've got Beth York. You've got Carrie Conabear. They will keep you in this race nonetheless. Still unable to hear my my commentating buddies here real quick. I will make sure that we can get them in here. I'll effort that in just a moment.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Scotty Weiss there slides to the front. Dixie, that's a good place to be. But when you see him turn on the afterburners, maybe let somebody else do the chase. Scotty is maybe here to work for you, which could be, in fact, the case. The other rider in here, Anna Barbado, and I'm looking down the group, and I do not see her. Saw her just a minute ago in that matchup, but I do not see her at the front of this in the first 20 riders. She may be sitting in a much better position, closer to the back of that group, or there's a real possibility she's in that chase group. And if she is, they got to find a way to get her back in this group ASAFP as soon as freaking possible, because this is only going to grow bigger as it goes. Okay, so I'll jump back to my man Casey, who's raced a million of these. Help us understand the sickness in the pit of your stomach that you're feeling right now at this point in the race. Hot start.
Yeah, you get a hot start like this, and then all of a sudden you start questioning, oh, is this hill going to be too hard? Am I going to get dropped? How long can I hold on like this? And you're just hoping that it backs down a little bit. You get those legs burning right out of the gate, and you start getting a little bit of anxiety setting in. So this is the tough part. Now it's you kind of got to get yourself calm now and ready for that next hill, because 30 seconds, 45 seconds, they're going to be getting a nice little attack going.
Well, hot dang. Hey, I'm going to grab and jump back into the race here real quick. I'm sorry to cut my guy off here. What we're seeing right now is just a little bit of the stretching out of the front of this thing. This is a real danger where something could actually open up. And if you are a fan of Dixie Newsome, you want her to be able to stay in the front half of this group. You'll notice Anna Barbado is, in fact, in that chase group. They are working hard to bring her back into this thing. 171 beats per minute. Dixie Newsome may not be able to hold the pace of this front group. There's still quite a bit of racing left to do here. But what she's got to try to do is get as much of a gap on Barbado as she possibly can. And Barbado also just now coming down the hill, you'll notice that Dixie Newsome is on the flat and a Barbado making that curve. It looks to be about 15 to 20 seconds. I've said many times before, and probably my guy Casey has as well, you can't lose or win a race in the first opening mile, but you can certainly lose it. And I don't say that Anna Barbado has lost the race here. There's a lot of racing left to do, but she's put herself in a really difficult spot and may not be able to overcome this problem that they've created right here at the very beginning of this race. That problem being that there is a 20-second gap between the lead group and this significantly smaller chase group. You'll notice that they're starting to line out a little bit more. Now, Ana Barbados sitting in a great spot wearing that PTZ jersey. You can't miss it. The white, the red, and that light blue all together in that kit. There they are right there. And the green. Can't forget the green. She is surrounded by teammates, and they are efforting to get her back in this mix. Dixie Newsome made that top group, people dropping some of the feathers as they come up that little hill. Not going to help you a ton here unless you are on the rivet. When I see a feather on such a small hill like that, it says to me, oh my gosh, they're in hurt. Yes, here as well, when you see that helmet drop out, there's no climb per se on this other than the slight uphill 3% coming back into the cauldron here, the caldera. But if you're dropping these and you're at the back half of the group, you're basically starting to unload anything off the airship, tossing out the furniture, just trying to get that thing lighter so you don't crash into the mountain of pain that's coming your way. Barbado hanging on her teammate's wheel. They are lined out. This is an all or nothing push. Now you see they just came under the arch. The lead group, the strung out group now is coming up on that arch. It looks to be, in my mind, about 25 seconds now to that lead group. We cannot see the real distances now because there are too many riders in between Barbado and Newsome. But we know just our own experience inside that bubbling inferno that Zwift likes to call a mountain, that there's a lot of pain still happening. Dixie keeping a 52 kilometer per hour average. Ana Barbado, who just crested that little hill, she's going to ramp it up. She's got to find herself over 52 kilometers an hour or 50 kilometers an hour if she wants to pull this back, because that is math, ladies and gentlemen. If a train leaves the station doing 49 kilometers per hour and another train leaves the station 28 seconds later doing 44 kilometers per hour, how long will it take the second train to reach the first train? Well, the answer is it never will. And you do not want to be on the backside of this. You want to get your kilometers per hour higher. And if Ana and her team are listening, they have got to pull this back. Now, Dixie is at the back half of this group, but if she is smart, she can use this group to get her where she needs to. Chasing on is a tough place to be. And no one would wish that upon anyone. So hopefully we'll see a change in the Barbado overall speed. They are really starting to pick it up now. They're just a little bit over, but that is the interesting part of this race. So many things happened right at the beginning. So many things happened right at the beginning. Let's just recap it in our mind here real quick, and then I'll try to bring in our commentary team to help out with this process, and will really help us process what we're seeing here. 47 miles or kilometers per hour on the Newsome group, which is the lead group. They're going to be able to keep a higher pace. 44 kilometers per hour on the Barbado group. They are chasing with everything they've got, but the PTZ group may have found themselves on the wrong side of this break early. As we said before, you can't win a race in the first kilometer, but you can at times lose that. Hi, I'm Chris Haskell. I'm joined by Casey Shum and Frank Garcia. We're excited to be with you here in this finale, if you will, of the Women's A League postseason race. That's right, the Women's A category postseason race, Dixie Newsome versus Ana Barbado. And if you're watching this, you see Dixie on the top left of your screen and Ana on the bottom or top right of your screen. A few other riders that of note: Kim Little, who is in watching the race today; Beth York, who is also one of the teammates, the team vixen right there of Dixie Newsome, trying to shepherd her rider to the finish line. Beth is going to join the cast and crew, of course, in CVR World Cup Los Angeles, which is in just 1 week from today. You'll hear this kickoff there. It's going to be super exciting. Beth is not only going to broadcast, but she's going to race, and that is a wonderful thing to see. So excited for our good friend Beth York to be able to do that. So as we look at this, this race as it's shaping up, I'll jump back over to my guys, and just give a moment here. Just give a moment here to Casey. Give us your best 60 seconds of what in the world is going through Barbado and her team's mind right now?
Well, right now they're kind of panicking. Just all they can do is pull as hard as they possibly can pull, and get Anna going as fast as they can possibly get her to go without dropping her off the back. And then what they're hoping for is, you have to remember, Dixie is still sitting in a strong A group pack. So that strong A group pack, if they spit Dixie out the back and she doesn't stay in the very front group in this, they're going to slow down significantly. And that second group is not that far back. I'm seeing a minute gap now. So that 1 minute gap can come down really quickly if Dixie can't hold on to this front group. So now it's critical. Dixie has to hold on to that front group. And the big Team PTZ group has got to just continue pushing. There's a little gap right now forming to Anna. She's got to hold on to that gap. Her team has to make sure they keep her in the draft, drop back and help her out here. So those are the critical pieces right now for them, I think, is just holding on to that.
Great team play, Casey. But what we see, Dixie's also at the back at 186, 187 beats per minute. I don't think she can sustain that for an entire race. Certainly that's got to be over threshold. This race is a little bit shorter, and she is getting what it looks to be like a kilometer gap. But what you got a whole bunch of Team PTZ people. Of course, they don't seem to be hanging with Anna right at the moment. But if Anna just maintains what she can do at threshold and gets a hold of that team pack, she can work her way back when Dixie comes off of this main group, as she looks like she is now.
Yeah, this is a critical time now. Dixie has lost that front pack, so she's only has 2 riders with her now. Anna's fallen off of her group too, but she has a lot of teammates there that I think are going to come back and help her out. So I think the chase is on now. It is a minute gap right now, but I think things change with Dixie not being in that front group.
Yeah, so Dixie's got the lead. She's got the advantage. It's advantage Newsom. Living up to her name, Dixie the Aggressor Newsom. But now, and she looks like she's got a couple of people here to ride with, holding about 42 kilometers per hour. And Anna's just come off the back, and I'm not quite sure, what's happening. Her team needs to come back and pick her up. But, did she throw in the towel a little bit early here? Would have been too early to throw in the towel there, because certainly she could have gotten back to Dixie at this point, especially with as large a group as she had supporting her.
Yeah, it's real interesting now. The Team PTZ riders, there was 5 or 6 jerseys pulling Anna around that first lap. If they're there to support Anna, they need to be back. Even if she's struggling a little bit, they should all be lined up right in front of her, regardless of what she feels like. If she has a wheel in front of her, she's going to go faster. So I think that is one key point here. I think from a team perspective, they need to be right in front of her.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe we can sort of travel forward and see what's happening, because I mean, some people are asking her, and really they need to come back and get her, right? Stop asking her and come back and give her a wheel. It looks like we got one rider back here.
Yeah, it looks like Whiteman's come back to help, and they're dropping back now. I see Anthony Jones, Nascimento. We got a PTZ train forming now, so that could turn the tide here real quick, as Dixie really only has 2 people helping her at this point.
Yeah, and the interesting part there for me is they lost a lot of time and put a lot of hurt into Anna's legs by not sort of just staying with her the whole time there. So I'm not. Did they lose her? I mean, I can't surely you're paying attention to Anna, but there's a lot of PTZ jerseys. Maybe they just.
Yeah, that pack may have been big enough that they may have just lost her in the bunch there a little bit, and lost track of her being off the back. If they're not actually talking in a team car or something like that, you may lose them in the pack. That riders nearby will only show you about 6 or 7 riders front and back, so you may have assumed she was kind of in the back of that pack. But now they're in a smaller bunch. They should be able to keep tabs on her really well. And I recognize some names here. There's a lot of horsepower sitting in here with her right now. Of course, you can't ignore if you slide up and look at Dixie a little bit. You know, she's got a world champion jersey sitting right in front of her and a Team X jersey sitting right in front of her. So there's definitely a little bit of power sitting in on both sides of these now. So this is an interesting little back and forth here. So yeah, they're continuing to go here. I'm trying to look at speeds now. There's a lot of power. Dixie's getting people pulling her at 5 watts per kilogram now. So definitely getting some momentum going with Dixie. Even though she's got the smaller pack now, there's definitely getting to be some momentum going there. Getting a lot of cheers over at Facebook too. Facebook and CycleView guys. We see those chats over there. Thanks for watching. Got a lot of teammates and people out there giving the cheering.
Yeah, it's always nice to have these folks cheering with us. Gentlemen, this is a wild start to a championship race, isn't it?
It really is. I thought this was a runaway for Dixie as soon as Anna was dropped, but things have changed a little bit now, and it's kind of the team TT. There's still a big gap, but man, there's a lot of work to do here to keep that gap for Dixie and just 3 other people helping her here.
Yeah, and you called it very early on that that the question wasn't whether the Barbado group could actually pull back the main group. It was how long Dixie could hang on to that big group. And we knew as that bump came around, that pace was so high and her heart rate was so dramatically higher that it was just a matter of time. There are only a handful of superhumans that can hold it as long as they did. Now, you still do it. You still try to do everything that you can to stay on that group, as she did, because it's a scenario of you want that rocket booster as long as you can get it. Now, this gap appears to be falling, right? PTZ has rallied around Anna, and this is the strategy of a race like this. If you can get your teammates to come out on a Saturday morning, evening, whatever time zone they're in, and they are spread all over the map, and I do mean the global map. This is the time check that we're going to pay close attention to here as she comes under the banner. I'll do my own little time check here to run the timer, the stopwatch, if you will, which is running right now. The PTZ group doing a nice job of shepherding her. She's still doing 170 beats per minute. This is hard work for anyone. The Dixie Newsom group running a much higher heart rate here, trying to get her, and it is a ragtag group. As Frank and I discussed when we cast it on Tuesday, it's great to have teammates, but if your teammates are kind of leaving gaps, coming by you with a little bit too much verve, kicking it into high gear, and making you close something, then yes, it's nice to have them, but they're not doing you any favors. And I worry about Dixie Newsom and Team Vixen here trying to do that. I find it very interesting that we have a PTZ jersey in that group. It looks to be Beth York. No, not Beth York. I'm not sure who is in that PTZ jersey. Let's effort. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it may be Beth, and that they may just be scouting here a little bit, but and maybe trying to disrupt the group a little bit. But what I find interesting here is I think they're overcooking Dixie. I don't think Dixie can hold 184, 187 for the entire race. They might want to back off. I mean, it's great to have a world championship or jersey pulling you along until it makes you blow up, and then it's not so good. And so this will be interesting to see how it plays.
Okay, well, we've got a minute and 20 seconds actual the gaps between the groups.
Yeah, there's actually a way different art form to pulling somebody along and racing. The way you have to pull the front of the group, you can't attack, you can't get those gaps in there. You really can, and Chris, you hit it on the head. You can't race the same way when you're trying to protect someone like that, because if you go to the front and do an aggressive pull, you start pulling those gaps, you kind of hurt the group. You have to be a little more, you have to dull those efforts a little bit. You can't be quite as sharp in going to the front and doing a pull. And yeah, definitely the heart rates. Dixie's heart rate's not moving more than 2 or 3 beats per minute for the last 2 laps. To be able to sustain this is going to be tough. So the people pulling her along, it's got to be Just how hard can I go and not overcook it?
Yeah, exactly. She really is just burning it at this point, and with not a ton of time, or not a ton of space left to go here. I mean, we're thinking probably about 35 minutes remaining in total distance here. 35 minutes. That there aren't many people who can sustain that heart rate for that long. She maybe we're underestimating her ability to do these micro recoveries in a descent or on the flat down here. But that's a lot of work. And you look at the relative effort of Ana Barbado and Team PTZ. They're shepherding her nicely. It's a nice big group too. But her heart rate a full 20 beats per minute lower. She's doing less overall wattage work. She's in a better position. If this group can manage to pull back the Newsom group, the real advantage goes to Ana.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see the kilometer gap here. We've got a kilometer gap. So there has to be definitely a strong PTZ pull here to close that gap now. So they need to be consistently pulling back 1 or 2 kilometers every lap, or more if they want to get that back. And there's some key points, watching on the course of when you can do those efforts and really make some progress and pulling people back. And there's definitely some points where you can lose a lot of time. If you can't do a little bit harder dig on the hill, something like that, you definitely can lose some time really fast. So riding the course here, and that goes back to some of my time trialing background. I focus on that a lot when I'm riding these courses. Is there's some key points where you can really lose a lot of time, and you have to focus on those points and put in a little extra effort to not lose those 10 or 15 seconds a lap.
There's not very far. There's only 11 kilometers left to go. So the PTC group is going to have to pull Ana back more quickly than they're doing now. They need to put the pressure on at this point. But you got to keep Ana with you. So Ana can only do what Ana can do, and this is a heads-up race, so they've got to bring her along. It was great to see, fantastic team effort out by PTZ today.
Wow, look at that line. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Frank. Yeah. Fantastic effort.
Yeah, and you see here on the hill, they're pushing. They've got Dixie with a little bit of gap here, and these are the types of things that are going to give PTZ that open window to pull that back a little bit. There's definitely a lot of people there pulling Dixie. You can see a lot of strong people have fallen off that front group to come back to do that pull. But as long as there's a gap there, there's no help, and there's still that struggle of that heart rate at 185 for Dixie. This is really team time trial. 2 teams. They may not all be wearing the same jersey, but this is team time trial head to head right here. How much can you keep it together but still pull as hard as possible?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, we're going to get another time check as they come up. We'll do an actual time check, run the stopwatch and everything. Just like a coach in tight-fitting shorts, we're going to make sure that we have all of the numbers here. Good game. Shower up. Nice job. 3 laps to go in this race. This is so exciting. But Dixie Newsom and the Team Vixen group come up and over. They're in the caldera underneath the stone arch of doom. And PTZ, Ana Barbado, on the right side of your screen top, chasing down with all they've got. PTZ wants to deliver this, and there's probably a little bit of added kind of passion in this. In that lead group shepherding Dixie Newsom is their former teammate Beth York. A year ago at this time, Beth York raced for Team PTZ. It's all amicable, of course. They still like each other. It was a good breakup as far as breakups go, but there's no doubt that they would probably like to be able to stick it to her in this case. Beth York in this case, by catching the rider that she's helping to protect. But she's Beth York, and she's savvy, and they are keeping a nice hot pace. But with 3 laps to go, can Dixie and her crew hang on? We saw just a moment ago, didn't we, Casey, a little bit of spot of bother. She was off the back. She found herself out of the arrow. She had to dig deep, 300, 400 watts to get back in that spot. And she can't do that forever, can she?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if she can hold this heart rate. I don't know what she maxes out at. I know everybody's heart rate's variable, but very few people are not completely in their pain cave at a 180. I mean, 180 is just over the top for just about anybody. So I would be shocked if 180 isn't a full-on threshold, all she can give for the duration of this race. I know I couldn't do that number, and I actually beat fairly high. So, and then watching, I'm watching Anna a little bit here going up the hill. Her team did much better that time on the hill effort. Anna never lost the wheel. She's getting a little tiny gap now, but it looks like her team is doing much better about keeping her in that draft. So, even if she's suffering a little bit, as long as she's got that wheel, it's still faster than being solo. So keeping that gap there all the time, where there's always a wheel and always a draft, is going to help you regardless of whether you're going uphill or not.
This is so interesting because it looks to me like the lead group, the Newsom group, Team Vixen, and their assembled ragtag group of street fighters is actually just trying to keep the pace high enough that they're not going to give everything away. They're not trying to run away. They're not trying to break the gap. They're simply managing the attrition of time. And it looks like their math is going to work out. On the other side, Ana Barbado and Team PDZ know that they have got to pull back this time. They gained about another 8 seconds on that lap. In overall time, I think a lot of that was on the climb as well. They really can't see much of each other. There are a few riders in the gap here, but they are completely aware that sitting in about 34th position, because they can watch it on CycleView just like we can, that they're sitting roughly about 20 positions back. But the positions don't matter today. What matters is the time. Can Dixie outrun Anna?
Yeah, Dixie is, sort of yo-yoing off the back at this point. Her power is way down for the heart rate she's holding. So she's way in the hurt locker, deep in the hurt locker at this point. She is just trying to hold sort of what would probably be threshold wattage. So this is like, I've blown up, but I still have the heart to keep cranking my pedals, I think is where she's at. And luckily, she doesn't have far to go in terms of what happens. But this kind of comes down to the whole FTP versus FRC thing, which I think a lot of people don't understand. The difference in this race today was Dixie's top end at the beginning, right? She was able to put out substantial watts above her FTP for long enough to stay with that group, to get a gap of half a kilometer, and then be with the faster people who shepherd her along. And then this shows why racing it's just not an FTP. It's not just a time trial. This is about being able to put out an aggressive effort, and then continue, and then the continuance. And I think that's going to be the difference in the race today.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, that's important from a power profile perspective, and I've talked a lot about this with teammates too. It's doing that one dig, staying with that pack for one more circulation of this. That's what got Dixie the gap. So it wasn't a matter of her holding onto that front group for the entire race, but every time they come around and they do this climb, it's a big effort, and being able to go that deep one time and being able to ride that group for one more lap got her that 45 second to a minute gap in the draft. And she eventually lost that front group, but she's able to maintain that gap. So, these two groups right now are maintaining a pretty steady gap, but it was that one big deep effort early in the race that kept Dixie in that draft for one more lap. And that's what got her the gap. And now it's just maintaining it. I don't think there's much left in this front group to actually extend the gap, but as long as they can maintain, that early effort was critical.
It was. The early effort was very critical, and that's what has happened to bring us to this point. Now, as we come up and over into the Caldera, we're going to see the 2 laps to go. My goodness, that seems like a long lap. We'll gather that actual time. Again, tight shorts, stopwatch, clipboard, coach here trying to manage this gap. And Ana Barbado and her team have managed to get a much bigger group together, but their top speed, not that different, and it has to be. They've got to kick this up another 2, 3, 4 kilometers per hour. I think that Ana and her group, maybe her 166 heart rate is a little bit too easy. I think maybe they need to kick it into gear. Casey, what do they have to do in 2 laps to make up this big gap?
Well, I think here they've got a nice big group. So what Team PTZ, I think, needs to do here is each one of those teammates need to go to the front of this pack and do some pulling. And I call it that it's kind of going to the front and pulling the rubber band a little bit. It's do a 20 or 30 second effort, and you kind of get to the front of the group and just drift a little bit off the front of the group, and the group kind of, you keep tugging on the front a little bit. It's a big enough group. Anna's just got to focus on holding on to the pack, where her teammates need to be going to the front and kind of pulling that rubber band every 15 or 20 seconds. And you'll find that really builds a lot of momentum in the group. And Anna has just got to do everything she can to hold on to the draft. Where they have to be careful is on the hill, but otherwise her teammates just need to be at the front of this group, just tugging that rope every little bit that they can. They've got the numbers there to pull the momentum as long as Anna can hold on to the group.
Very, very true. Yeah, holding on to that group, that's the key part. And I think that they can do it. I think that they can accomplish it. It just is a matter. It's just a matter of putting it together. So if you're just joining us, this is Dixie Newsome and Ana Barbado coming under. You know what? I hate to tell you this, but that gap to the Barbado group by my stopwatch has actually grown by about 15 seconds. We may not be seeing the pace necessary in the Newsome group growing. This is Dixie Newsome versus Ana Barbado in the A championship race, the women's A of this CVR World Cup League postseason. And the winner is granted an opportunity to attend the next major. Now, we're not ready to tell you where that's going to be. They won't join in LA, but they will have the opportunity to join at the next one over the summer. And that'll be great, that they could earn their way through racing and great team play into this thing. But you'll notice who has come back to help Dixie Newsome. Look who's sitting at the front of that group. Casey, how does that change, I guess, the feeling that you have in your heart when you see those World Championship stripes sitting on the front of your group?
Yeah, I mean, Dixie has some phenomenal help here. I mean, she's got world champion stripes sitting at the front of this group at 5 watts per kilogram the entire lap. So, I mean, she's got some of the best assistance here. She doesn't have the numbers that Ana does, but for sure, I mean, I've looked around in that group a little bit. We have solid A men riders sitting in that group with Dixie that are riding threshold heart rate. These guys are suffering, and they are doing everything they can to keep this pace up. You know, having Scotty's wheel, I've been on Scotty's wheel, and all you do is you pray for him not to drop you, because he will pull your legs off and smack you upside the head with him when he gets on the front and starts pulling.
which is not very polite. Let's point that out. But if it's going to happen, he's the right guy to do it for sure. World Championship stripes on the front of that group, and in Scotty's case, doing a nice job. But Dixie and Ana giving us an amazing show here. And let's boil this back down to where it all happened. You know, you might say, well, that's not fair. Dixie's got these people in her group, or that's not fair. Ana's got these people in her group. But the truth is, Dixie did what she needed to do to stay in that main group. And Ana found herself in a different part of that group. As we said at the beginning, we'll say again, we'll beat it like a dead horse. You know, you can't win a race in the first kilometer, but you can lose it if you find yourself separated off the largest, fastest group. And that's what happened to Ana Barbado today and Team PTZ. Now, they rallied around her, didn't they, to bring her into the fold. You see all those PTZ jerseys. It looks like it's a great club ride. They ought to take a picture of this and put it on their poster, put it on a T-shirt, because it's a great effort. But PTZ is not able to do as much as they need to do to get back in the group here, to get to catch back on as the Newsome group comes in and is now entering the Caldera. The Barbado group is about a minute and a half to 2 minutes back. They are chasing hard, but the overall speed is not different enough to create the closure of those two groups as you would hope. But it's a massive group. But the time is now. We're about to hear that bell ring. It's going to be 1 lap to go here in a minute for Dixie Newsome, Team Vixen, and the rest of that group. And Ana Barbado and her group are still measurably behind. They're outside, at least. They're on the descent. They're close, but maybe not close enough. So, Frank, a quick question to you. As you look at the shaping of this race, you're going to hear all about it. People that love it, people that hate it. Maybe give us a sense with 1 lap to go, dingle, 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 what we think people are going to be feeling about this really team-oriented championship race.
Well, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think there'll be lots of conversation about what jersey you're wearing, who you're helping. Maybe that should be a little bit more transparent. It's pretty transparent at this point as we see the groups forming. I think it's a fantastic showing by PTZ coming out in mass, in force for Anna. It's just that's just fantastic. You see, I think you said your ragtag band of street fighters, just because they're not all in uniform, the same uniform, pulling for Dixie. I had a conversation with Dixie. And she really, really wanted this, and you can see that in her heart rate. She's still maintaining that heart rate. So that is a day that's going to be a hard recovery day. Later today, she's going very, very deep. I think it's fantastic to see the amount of team racing. I think we'll hear some controversy over men. Women, mixed groups here. I think it's great to see. I think that'll change a little bit in the coming spring season as we do races, as we separate the races between the men and the women. We offset them an hour and a half. But I think there'll be a lot of conversations. But what I think is great is the teamwork. We can see here, for instance, if Dixie didn't have a team around her, Anna and PTZ definitely would have brought her back. So, good for Dixie to form the group that she's in, and fantastic showing by PTZ. Tremendous team spirit there. Obviously a team that came out in mass for Anna today.
I think Casey, you're the right person to comment on this as well. I mean, we all race, for ourselves. We try to beat our friends. We try to, climb one position higher as Anna Barbado and Team PTC come around with 1 to go, about a 2-minute gap, maybe a little bit less. But you have jumped in a number of races this year with your position in CVR World Cup LA already secure. You've jumped in to help other folks. Can you explain what it feels like to jump in and give everything you've got for a teammate or a friend?
I mean, it's a whole different style of racing, and I have to tell you, the enjoyment of racing for somebody and seeing them get that win and that excitement that they have, that is almost more gratifying and exciting to race than it is to do it for yourself. Being able to help somebody and push. I mean, a lot of times you push yourself further because you don't need to save yourself for that sprint. There's been a couple of those different scenarios that I've been in where, my teammate has won or lost by a half a wheel. And I'm just as disappointed or excited as they are at the end of the race. And the type of racing you have to do and paying attention to different things in the race and the motivation to help. I mean, quite frankly, these are people I've never met in real life, most of them, but I mean, they're friends and they're people you really want to do well for. And it's a whole different scenario. And it's pretty awesome to see this type of racing really come out in this head-to-head type environment.
And I don't know that people really expected that the postseason, these 1v1s would be this way. I mean, today we came out to see Dixie Newsom and Anna Barbado. But I think knowing over the last 4 weeks what we've seen, that these folks would actually show up, that teammates would show up, that teammates would support. This many, I'll be honest, that kind of took me by surprise. But as we continue to push through the league here, this final part of the bracket here for CVR World Cup postseason, Anna and Dixie are giving us the show that we dreamed of. This is fabulous. Now, Anna Barbado and her PTZ group are giving it everything they've got. The heart rates are high, but she is finding herself just in a different place. They're going to throw everything they've got to this final lap. But now that Dixie, Team Vixen, and her ragtag band of street fighters, I think I even see Han Solo and Chewbacca in that group. Yeah, those are some rebels right there. They are just about to come up for this final lap. They're going to take her across the line. It'll be interesting to see how they do it and what they do. Are they going to let her have the lead there? They're going to let her celebrate a little bit. There is no animation effect that allows you to throw your hands over your head, but you can guarantee on her trainer in her lab, she is going to do that. We'll wait for these results to be final, but yeah, carry on.
I believe they're rolling up to the finish line now. I believe this is the end of the race. Yeah, this is the end of the race for Dixie. So they're going to be sprinting out of Dixie's group here now. We'll see if this group, I think this group will probably still sprint on Dixie. They've pulled her this far along. They've got a good gap now. They're going to have a little fun here, getting some, you can see the aero helmets dropping and they're going after it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep. And well, here's the interesting thing. Will she try to sprint as well, or will she be content to? And actually, she does. She kicks it into high gear. She keeps the legs spinning high. She comes up and over the top. You know her hands are in the air right here, and she finds herself as a winner of this women's postseason A bracket with the potential for a ticket to the next CVR World Cup live event. And congratulations, Dixie Newsome. As we switch our attention to the other side of the pane here, we see, seriously, it could be a postcard for PTZ. They better put this on their website because it looks so good. Team PTZ gave everything that they had. They threw everyone that they had. There've got to be people that are up in the middle of the night all over the world so that they could race this. You know that when PTZ comes together, that they've got their folks there. And it's true. PTZ has put together a great team here to try to recover that little gap, which turned into a much larger gap at the beginning of the race. And they're still pushing hard. They're still lining it out. They still want a strong finish, and they deserve it. Ana Barbado finds herself in second place in this World Cup postseason, which is a tough place to be, but it's also a great place to be. It gives confidence to your team that you belong in this. It gives you a little bit of strategic, kind of consideration for next season. You definitely have your marked rider, as Frank would like to say, the patron here, the one that you're going to protect and take care of, and it looks like they've got him. So Frank, as she comes up kind of here to the finish here, let us know, I guess, what Ana Barbado and Team PTZ have to look forward to in the next season, because clearly she's a rider worth riding for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Ana probably focuses a little bit of training on the upper range, right? A lot of times, everybody talks FTP. I've said it before, and she obviously had the FTP because they were holding it, right? The gap was extending a little bit. Of course, you got the world champions, some strong guys on the front there, but they had a big group. I think all she needed to do was be able to, stay with that initial surge. We all know that the initial surge is, strong on Zwift. And so maybe a little practice there, and then, fantastic team showing. I mean, I'm just so impressed by PTZ and, how they came out, and what a fantastic, ride. I think they'll learn a little bit on making sure you stay with the marked rider, the patron.
Yeah.
The patron is not going to be real happy if you leave him isolated. But that was sort of a minor period when I think everybody was very excited and wanted to bring Dixie back, and so they'll improve a little bit there. But wow, just a fantastic team showing. Lots of women out today. Big race. Obviously, it meant something to a lot of people. And that's just fantastic. I mean, that's absolutely what we're looking for at CVR World Cup.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. And as I was thinking about that, a gap at the beginning, finding yourself in the wrong side of a split, that's not virtual bike racing. That's bike racing, right? I mean, that happens on the road all the time, and I should know what it feels like to be on the wrong side of a big old gap. I'm also not the guy to close that gap, so I know that feeling. And they may have been just a hair too patient there at the beginning, thinking, okay, well, don't worry. It's not too much at this point. There wasn't a lot of a real concern early. I think what they thought is when they had the numbers again, they could pull it back. What they didn't count on is others jumping back into the fray to find themselves back in that group with Dixie Newsome. A few people came back to her from that main group to allow it to grow. And once those numbers were relatively equalized, the gap didn't change much throughout. But lots to celebrate here, lots to learn. And Casey, throw this to you. As you look at kind of how this season for the women's A, the season is over, right? The postseason is over. And if we could, Frank, I'd love to see that graphic again, just involved in that women's A bracket. Just to toss to Casey here. But my question to you really is this. As the first real experience with a postseason, with a bracket, with these exciting pieces in this virtual bike racing season, really the first season like this that we've had, not an isolated race, but an actual season. How has it changed the dynamic in the peloton with the racers, with the friends? How's it changed?
Well, I think, especially since we've gotten to the postseason, a lot of people have seen how much impact it can be to have support in these races. So I think what we're going to see in the next league rounds is some people are going to be going for those league wins. You know, if you win your zone, you get to go to the final. So seeing the impact to having help it is in these races now. And I think how much that can move you up in the groups or holding on to the groups like Dixie had today. If she didn't have that help when she fell off that group a lap after Anna, she was going to get pulled back in. So I think next season, we're going to see a lot more people that maybe aren't going for the league from a scheduling perspective or something like that, that they're unable to race all 8 weeks in their brackets or whatever that time frame may be. I think you're going to see a lot of those people come out and support their friends and their teammates a lot more, because that can make or
it can make a huge
final
difference. You're right. This is interesting because, Casey, you and I have had this conversation before where we've said, gosh, it is fun, but, the team racing dynamic had been missing for a long time. And we tried to come up with different formats. You and I have even played around with race formats in small groups. Like, okay, well, if you limit it to 4 racers and we tried to create those. But it was impossible in a lot of ways to actually generate those. It seems to have happened almost organically here with this. So as we transition kind of into this next phase, you are 1 week away from the major, Los Angeles, March 24th and 25th. And this is the CVR World Cup major, and there are going to be so many folks there. Here's the schedule. You don't want to miss it. It's at StubHub Center, of course, in Los Angeles, which is a velodrome. But it kicks off early on Saturday morning with the first women's heat. Now, what they will do is they will actually separate those heats. The top riders will move into the top 5 riders move into that final heat, referred to as performance and elite. There'll still be 2 races. There'll still be prize money for both men's and women's in that. But Sunday we'll have those performance brackets. Now, as we look at some of the women's racers who are going to be in that, you saw a number of them today here. Now, if you remember from the last event, CVR World Cup Paris, you'll remember that Carrie Conaber found herself in a similar gap early on in the race in the women's qualifier, so to speak, and definitely one of the strongest. Well, she found herself unable to close that gap by herself and found herself actually in the performance bracket on the last day. And she crushed it. That's a storyline coming in here. She expects to be able to win this whole thing. And she's going to do everything that she can to do that. Now, Beth York, a strong finisher, made that group, but she's up against, Esther Maisels, Amila Allison, of course, Allison Kabuta. Those folks have something else to say about it. And Casey, on the men's side of this, as we look at our men's major winners, you find yourself in pretty steep company here, which is really, really exciting. But you are the winner of Zone F, and you had some really stiff competition to make that happen. What's your take on the competition here? Who do you need to watch out for, and maybe who's a complete lightweight and shouldn't even be there? I'm not talking about Kim Little. But I mean, for example, just, a name.
Well, I mean, the one to me, the big wild card here is Lionel Sanders, being a phenomenal world-class triathlete. I mean, I've got a triathlon background myself, so just to be able to compete against him is phenomenal. But then, to be competitive with him, I would have never dreamed that would even be an opportunity for me. So I think that's awesome. But really, you can't take anyone for granted here. There is a tough set of competition here, and there are going to be some fantastic bike riders that don't even make it to the elite division on Sunday. I think, there's going to be some awesome racing, and I would ask you, Chris. I look at this, and especially in the ladies, I haven't went through the full roster to know all of their affiliations, but I've seen it in this bracket play, like Team Vixen, Team Fearless. They always have 4 or 5 riders in everything going on. So are there teammates in some of these top 20s that are going to work together in these races? How many, or is everybody in it for themselves? I'm curious to see how some of that will play out.
I am too, and the question is, we don't know. We're going to have to tune in to find out. Will you see, Carrie Conabare and Beth York work together to get one of them a victory? I think that at the beginning of those races, it will kind of feel itself out, and we'll see. But you're right. Folks like Lionel Sanders, who, by the way, according to the internet, is actually a T1000. He was sent from the future to kill Sarah Connor. And while he's here, he's actually doing some triathlons, which makes sense because, they're really good right now. But you don't know. You don't know. And that's why you have to tune in and watch. And of course, you can tune in if you're in the Los Angeles area in person. You can tune into the sweat dripping off of their brows and their bikes. You could even catch some and take it home and put it in your special box of memories. It's up to you. Or you can tune in and watch, and we hope that you will do exactly that. You'll be able to watch the live racing at cycleview.cvrworldcup.com. You'll be able to hear the commentary, or if it's your choice, not hear the commentary. You'll be able to see great interviews. You'll be able to see Casey sweat in real life. It's going to be amazing. This is the second time one of these events has been held at a velodrome, and it's the right venue. It is so fun to be on the center of the track, to have cyclists on the outside of the track, or on the track rather, and lots of folks cheering. It's really, really cool. So we'll kind of close this out. Final thoughts, gentlemen.
I will say just fantastic racing for the women all the way through the zone racing, the bracket racing. It's been fantastic to watch. The team efforts that are starting to come through with these ladies teams that are out there. It just awesome to watch. And then coming up on the finale, I would encourage people to watch and cheer. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be racing, and just to express how much it means and is motivating to us as racers. For those personal cheers that we get when we're riding. I know that means a lot to the guys that are racing, and the ability to do that when we're racing live at somewhere, an event as big as this means a lot. So, come out, cheer on your rider. There's going to be an online way that you can do that cheering and kind of pass that on to the rider real time while they're riding. So I think that's awesome. I can't wait for the finale and to see how this next league shapes up now that people are learning how to race the league.
It really is. It's almost like we've seen some strategies develop throughout this postseason that we did not expect before. We did know that there were some teams that, Team X, Vision, did put some teamwork into those 8-week regular season races, but we saw some amazing numbers come to play. And we saw again here, it's not always about the total numbers. PTZ had the numbers in their group, but didn't manage to pull it back. It will be great. They're going to be granted these zone winner kits. They're very, very special. Not everybody gets one. Did you win a zone? If you didn't win a zone, guess what? You don't get one. So these are wonderful kits provided by Garneau, one of the many great partners, and we have to thank them, of course, for. The partners, that is, for all of the support that they've given this, and they'll give this great event, including Saras, Cyclops, Power Tap, and of course Garneau, and Hunter Allen Peak's coaching group. So it's great that that we're able to put this event on. And gosh, guys, we're just a week away. We're going to be together in sunny Los Angeles and put together, I think, what is going to be a great show. It's been awesome to present these races. Tune in on Tuesday for the final series of races in the other brackets. And tune in to see who is going to get that golden ticket to the next World Cup live event. We know that Dixie Newsom is got her golden ticket right there, and it's going to be great. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I'll sign off for Frank and for Casey and myself, Chris Haskell. Thanks for joining us here, CVR World Cup, and we will see you on Tuesday and, of course, next Saturday in LA. Thanks a lot.